on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
We've all seen the disturbing video taken on September 29th showing the violent clash between a group of motorcyclists and the driver of a Range Rover. I'm sure you have an opinion as to who is at fault. Well, on tonight's show, we will hear what those in the legal field think and why this story is far from over. Also, we meet an innovative legal group whose goal is to protect small businesses, and nowadays we could all use a little bit more protection. We have an interesting show ahead of us, so stay right here because today's verdict starts right now. Welcome to today's verdict, the show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney for the next 30 minutes, David Lesch. On September 29th, there was a violent clash between a group of motorcyclists and an SUV. On today's show, we are going to talk with our legal experts to find out how the incident might play out in a New York courtroom. Of course, the NYPD has an opinion, so let's hear what Commissioner Ray Kelly has to say.
Streets and they get onto the Henry Hudson Road and they're driving south and they're acting according to the complainant recklessly, driving in a somewhat erratic manner. The individual in the car strikes one of the motorcyclists and that person ultimately winds up with a broken leg. He stops, he's surrounded by about 20 to 30 bicyclists, as he describes it, or motorcyclists, I should say. They take their helmets and they start to dent his car, and apparently his tires are slashed there with a knife. He gets in the car. He's in the car with his wife. He drives, continues to drive, and he drives to 178th Street between Wadsworth Avenue and the Henry Hudson, where he is stopped again by a group of motorcyclists. He's taken out of the car. He is assaulted. He received some stitches at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. He has been treated and released. Obviously, the investigation is ongoing. We're checking cameras in the area.
The ongoing investigation has led to 8 motorcyclists being charged with assault. One cyclist who is still in the hospital who is in critical condition, and the fate of the driver of the SUV still unknown. With most of the incident caught on tape, this should be a very interesting case. And joining me at our today's verdict roundtable is criminal defense attorney Nathaniel Burney. Mr. Burney has represented individuals who are targets of government investigations, as well as the prosecutions that follow. And he is also a former prosecutor at the Manhattan DA's Rackets Bureau. Also with me today is Larry Cunningham, professor and associate dean at St. John's Law School. Mr. Cunningham has an extensive background in criminal law and New York criminal practice, and we are happy to have them both joining us on the show. Professor, I'm going to start with you. Have you seen anything like this happen in New York in recent memory? Because I haven't really.
No, we certainly haven't seen anything like a motorcycle gang surrounding an SUV, but New York has had many high-profile cases, many involving allegations of a group of individuals acting against one or two victims. And for some reason, that type of dynamic tends to really kind of play into the New York psyche.
And it's really what everyone seems to be talking about now. You know, just general conversation happens to revolve around this particular incident. But, you know, Nathan, let's talk a little about the rules of the road here. Just you know, so the viewers know, you actually also ride a motorcycle. Am I correct?
Correct, yes.
So let's talk about the rules of the road with respect to motorcycles driving down a highway similar to the West Side Highway.
They're the same rules that apply to anybody else. I mean, you can't go, you know, if traffic is moving smoothly, you're not supposed to be weaving in and out of traffic, scaring people with your bikes, and cutting in front of people and hitting the brakes. Like you couldn't do it in a car, you can't do it on a motorcycle.
Well, is there a certain regulation where you have to be side by side? Can you have one in every lane? How does that work?
It's actually very good practice to ride, not side by side, but sort of staggered. So you would have two people occupying the same space that a car would occupy, sort of back and forth within the same lane. So one person's on the left side of the lane, one person's on the right side of the lane, in the same lane.
And from a common sense point of view, you're obviously not allowed to slow up traffic, so those in front of you can have a good time and do tricks. Am I correct?
You couldn't do it in a car. You're not supposed to be taking over the highway, I guess, without a permit from the NYPD that you're allowed to have like when the bicyclists do.
Right. But Professor, from what I understand, you've had a situation where you've seen that occur. Am I correct?
Actually, yeah. I was driving back on the LIE one day, and all of a sudden, this kind of group of motorcycles kind of deliberately slowed down traffic. They all had their cell phones out, and they were recording each other doing various tricks and showing off, and in the process, really taking the LIE to a standstill. And what's interesting about this is how difficult it is for law enforcement to intervene and deal with these bike gangs because they are so mobile and they can accelerate quickly and zip in and out of traffic and be gone in an instant.
And I understand sometimes when they take off after the motorcyclist, it ends up creating another accident somewhere along down the down the roadway, which is one of the reasons the unwritten rule was that the police were kind of letting a lot of this stuff go on.
That's right.
And that's what I hear. All right, Nathan, let's put on our prosecutor's cap for a while. You've been a prosecutor. You want to prove a case against one of the motorcyclists, right? How do you do it?
Well, fortunately for the prosecutor, there's a lot of video here. A lot of the motorcyclists themselves had video on them. And so it's very hard for someone to say, oh, no, that wasn't me doing this, right? The thing that the prosecutor had to overcome, really, is a claim that they didn't see what really happened at first, and all they saw was what looked like a car hit another biker, and we're trying to detain this person at the very outset, not the later one where we run to the crowd.
Well, do you incorporate? And obviously, take the video.
Mm-hmm.
The witnesses. Are you?
Oh, sure.
I mean, are you going to use the driver of the SUV? Are you going to? Are they partial? Not partial? Who else are you going to use to basically show that there was some type of menacing or harassment that was going on?
You're going to want the driver
okay.
and his wife and the child, not the child obviously, but the people in the car to say what they saw, what they were feeling, especially when you have like this menacing that you mentioned.
Okay. And what does that carry? What kind of punishment is that, by the way? Well, I mean, it's not a minor violation. I mean, it is a crime, menacing.
I mean, yeah, these are crimes, absolutely. Yeah. And if you've got assault, you could charge a gang assault, maybe a vehicular assault. And these are felonies, some of them, with the higher level degrees of assault.
Very quickly, Professor, with the video, you can see one of the drivers of the motorcycles kind of purposely slowing down, almost to create a hit in the rear type of thing,
sure.
On purpose. Can that be used also to show that there's some kind of crime that was going on?
Absolutely. It can show the purpose and the motive behind the whole encounter, that this was not just some random car accident, but that this was something that was kind of deliberately created, that these were not people trying to get the guy's insurance information so they can file an insurance claim, that this was a purposeful, deliberate act on their part to cause mayhem and cause injury.
All right, well, listen, we did the prosecutor, but we're going to come back because we're going to hit the defense. We have to take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue discussing this case, this time from the defense's point of view. We'll be right back.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
All right, give me a spot. You know my motto, safety first.
They could be dangerous. I think we should call animal control.
Animal control?
To be safe.
Don't worry.
I got this. It's a new motto.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
All right, welcome back. I'm your host, David Lesch. Stay up to date with today's verdict by connecting with us and sending in your questions or comments through Facebook or Twitter. We've been discussing the violent incident that involved motorcyclists at an SUV on September 29th of this year. The attack on the West Side Highway left one man critically injured and another one on the roadway bleeding in front of his family. At the start of the show, we looked at the strength of the prosecution, but now we shift gears and look at the arguments the defense will be putting forth. But first, let's listen to how one of the motorcyclists describes the incidents on CNN.
So what did you see?
We came onto West Side Highway, actually southbound, coming from 95. We made the U-turn, we came around, everything was at a stop. It's kind of like, he kind of came to the front. It was maybe like a handful of us guys from all around, and
right.
We just took a ride. It was just a ride, like a gathering, like every weekend ride. And we were coming up and seeing.
I mean, so you saw, I mean, we saw the SUV in the video here. You see drive over the two bikers.
Yes.
You saw that happen.
Yes.
So the video, it's very hard to tell sort of who did what or who started that. From what you saw, what do you think happened?
The driver was a maniac.
The driver of the SUV?
Yes, he was a maniac. He hit the first guy. The guy bike kind of lost control, went over, stopped, and from my rear view, like from the right rear view, the body was just underneath the truck. He just right over. The truck came at least thigh high, and he kept proceeding on.
And
the driver of the
SUV.
Yes.
And you describe him as a maniac. You've said he and his wife didn't look concerned, but
not at all.
I mean, to be honest, I have to say that's hard to believe. He had his 2-year-old child in the back. He must have been scared. There's a gang of bikers around him. He's alone. Can you see his side of it at all?
He didn't. I can understand it kind of in a way, but from previous where it happened, the accident is an accident. If you're going to, if something happens, you stop right there as an accident. You think and stop. You don't keep reacting on.
Now, Ron, before you go, I have to show you, we just have these pictures in from the NYPD, which we just got in. I want to show them to you.
Yes.
These are pictures that they've just given us. Take a look if you can.
Joining us in today's discussion is criminal defense attorney Nathaniel Burney and Professor Larry Cunningham, who is also the Associate Dean at St. John's Law School. Again, gentlemen, thanks for being here. Nathan.
Sure.
Listen, a picture, a video speaks 1,000 words. I'm sure each one has its own take on what it's going to show. But now you're the defense, okay? You gotta represent. You got to put on your defense cap, and you got to represent one of the motorcyclists. What type of arguments are you going to really put forth?
Well, absolutely. I mean, first you want to start off with the fact that when you're a motorcyclist, whether in a group of people or by yourself, you see other cars on the road as not just threats, but they're actually trying to hurt you. It looks like, they don't see you. And it's very common for people to get hit by cars on motorcycles.
By the way, do you find that when you're on your motorcycle that sometimes cars are looking to push you around?
It's not that they're looking to push you around, it's that they don't see you. Although the rule for most places is just presume they can't see you, you're invisible. In Manhattan, my rule has always been presume they can see you and are actively trying to hit you, because that's the way they drive. Although it's more like an exercise in fluid dynamics.
So what's the argument that you're making then with respect? You're a motorcyclist. What's the argument that you can take off after an SUV and hit somebody with a
what it looks like? Let's say you're one of these other guys in the group, right? And you see this SUV looks like hits another biker, and you don't know exactly how it happened, but you see that, and now everybody's stopped, and all of a sudden this SUV takes off, runs over another biker, all right? And so I can see how emotions would be high. People are probably not thinking very clearly, but when I stop this person and make sure, obviously, that they don't get away, this person's a threat, he's dangerous, and also, I mean, I'm not sure this would necessarily excuse some of the direct assault on the driver. Although perhaps you could say extreme emotional distress here and overcoming their reason.
Well, Professor, let me ask you a question. You think that somebody is involved in a hit and run, and you take off after them. Does that seem justified in terms of the behavior that follows, or I mean, what are you going to argue as a defense attorney?
So
you got to do something, right?
I think always as the defense, you got to separate out what you're going to argue versus what's going to be a successful argument. And so, yeah, I think you absolutely put that forward. But I think there's another argument here that can be really, really effective, which is, there's a principle in the law that mere presence at the scene of a crime is not a crime. And so I think with such a public atmosphere and lots of discussions about this, that each of the defense attorneys has to make sure that their client is not being kind of roped into something without them having done so. Just because somebody was a motorcyclist on this roadway who happened to stop doesn't mean that they're also guilty in the same way that the person who was assaulting the driver was.
Okay, let's get down to the trial itself, because it's going to get there at some point. What do you think? Where do you think this is going to go? Is it going to be pled out? Do you think that this is going to go the full distance? Is it going to destroy our city? I'll start with you.
Oh, it's not going to destroy the city.
Okay.
We're a strong city. And whether it's going to go to trial or not, that's a decision that each individual defendant's going to have to make, with the advice of his lawyer. Most cases don't go to trial in this town. They do not. Most are resolved beforehand, either with a plea or some other kind of resolution.
How about you, Professor? What do you think? You think this is going the distance, or do you think at some point it's going to be pled out?
I think it's going to depend. I think both sides are going to be cautious and want to look at all the evidence before they start entering negotiations, particularly with such a media focus and now politicians getting involved. This coming up in the mayoral debate, and so I think all sides are going to be as careful as possible. And then, plea negotiations are always based on strength of the evidence. And so I think it's really going to vary depending on each of the individual defendants.
Lastly, I want to put on my own civil litigation hat for a second. We're talking about lawsuits that might be brought by the person who's injured in the roadway, obviously. He's going to bring an action probably against the driver of the SUV. What are your thoughts there? Do you think there's a case there? Do you think he's justified to flee? Professor, you first.
Oh, I think everybody's going to sue everybody in this instance, including, I'm very curious about whether there's going to be municipal liability here for the city. There's evidence come out about police officers being in the group,
there's an undercover officer there.
Yeah, so I'm very interested in all the various parties that are going to be named, but certainly any type of accident, let alone injuries and everything, certainly I think we're going to expect civil litigation. How it's going to play out, again, is going to depend on the evidence.
And Nathan, what do you think? There's going to be a trial. There's going to be certainly there's going to be a lawsuit filed.
Absolutely, and I would be very surprised if the city was not a party to that. Not just for the reasons that you mentioned, but also for the police not stopping this before it happened. I've read accounts where they actually, all the bikers just pretty much blew through, I'm told, a checkpoint they had on one of the bridges that was pulling over other bikers. But these guys just kept on going with, from what I read, like the helmet's not on or off, or the license plate's bent back and stuff, all kinds of reasons for police to pull somebody over, but they chose not to in this point.
Okay, last question. Is this bad news for bikers, yes or no?
Yes, in the short term.
Pretty much, right?
But in the end, I think we all know people who ride motorcycles.
What do you think, Nathan?
It always is. These are the guys that make the rest of us look bad.
That's probably true. Well, gentlemen, thanks very much. But we have to take a quick break. But when we return, we will find out how to protect yourself against those who try to steal your much-treasured patents. We'll be right back.
Maybe he's really focused.
Maybe he likes spinning the wheels.
Maybe he just loves trucks.
Preoccupation with objects is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Being a dad can be tough.
No. What do you mean she's not coming?
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now.
But when you're willing to do anything...
It is I, Grooves Zinkerbell. Okay, time for cake.
It's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Drew. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Welcome back. I'm your host, David Lesch. Remember that our show is here to serve you, our viewers. So don't forget to connect with us on Facebook and Twitter and tell us what topics or questions you'd like us to cover on the show. If you're a small business entrepreneur trying to legally protect your product or service, it can be complex and costly. And if you try to take the cheaper route, you could very well lose money, and you don't want to do that. So what should you do? Well, recently, a group of legal experts came together to form the Law School Patent Troll Defense Network. The network offers free services to small business entrepreneurs, legally guiding and protecting them from what they call the patent trolls. And here to tell us more about the network is Christopher Beal. Mr. Beal is currently a student at Brooklyn Law School and is a member of the Incubator Policy Clinic. He's also the coordinator for the Law School Patent Troll Defense Network. And I'm very impressed, Christopher. I got to tell you, when I was in law school, I wasn't doing all those things. So let's just get that right out there. All right. You're a business. You got ideas, and you got inventions. What are you trying to protect?
Well, really, you're trying to protect both.
Okay.
Patents, for example, are a form of asset protection,
right.
Just like protecting capital or anything else. In this case, it's intellectual property. So patents work to basically prevent people from having a field day with things that you've created or you've invented.
Well, I'm thinking like a business plan. And you come out of business school and you got a great plan, and you create some kind of idea. I'm not saying it's actually a product, but it's really an idea. You want to protect that, correct?
Yeah.
And you can patent that.
Depends.
Right.
There are certain barriers in the way, certain statutory goals that you have to meet before you can get a patent. But you can get patents on things like business methods, a way of doing something as long as it's novel, non-obvious, that
those
kind
are more
of thing.
thoughts. But now, you take those ideas and you put them on paper, and you've actually created something like, a pocketbook or something, right? You've created something. Now you want to put forth another type of, am I right when I say utility patent, design patents? What are we talking about there?
Sure. Yeah, there are sort of three subcategories of patents. One of them is utility patent, and that's for like processes, articles of manufacture, things that are made. Then there's design patents, which is more like ornamental stuff, kind of like the way the Samsung versus Apple stuff dealt with that, the way the iPhone looked versus the way the Samsung Galaxy looked, that kind of thing. And then there's plant patents, which honestly I don't know.
Now, by the way, so some of the patents last longer than other patents. Am I correct?
Yeah.
What's the general lifespan of a patent? Is it forever? Is it?
Generally speaking, for like a utility patent, which is the one I'm most familiar with, it lasts about 20 years.
Okay.
Barring some sort of weird, unforeseen circumstance, or if you don't pay the USPTO.
Now, what I always remembered from law school, which was such a long time ago, was the uniqueness to go and get yourself a patent. Describe what that really means. I mean, anyone can't just say, well, I just want a patent. I think I'll patent this piece of paper. It doesn't work that way, right? It's got to be something that's unique. What are you really saying?
So for that, it has to be new. It can't be something that's already existed. That's called like prior art, things that are there that have already been used, either sold or just existing commerce. It also has to be a certain type of subject matter. You can't patent things of nature, like you can't patent a rock.
Okay, so it's got to be novel, something unique. Now, let's say you have this idea, and you want to patent it, and you want to take the first steps. What do? Do you go to an office? Do you file how much money do you need? What do you do?
Filing a patent can be pretty expensive. It depends on sort of the scale of the business. There's some new stuff that some new rules that came out as part of the America Invents Act that was enabled last year. But really, it's still best to go through a patent agent, or if you can't afford the services of a patent agent, which can get into the tens of thousands of dollars, you can seek out a clinic like BLIP.
That's what I want to talk about. Let's tell us about the clinic.
So BLIP is the Brooklyn Law Incubator and Policy Clinic. Basically, we work as law students under the direction of a practicing attorney to help small businesses that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to protect their inventions or to form the businesses.
And what do you do for them?
We do a number of things. Incorporation, we do patent filings, we do some basic patent searches, and then now we started this network of defense for people that are targeted by patent trolls, people that exploit the patent system.
What is a patent troll?
Patent trolls, which I think is kind of a funny term.
We know what a troll is, but what is a patent troll?
That's kind of what it is. It's somebody that hides under the bridge. In this case, the bridge is made up of a bunch of poor patents.
Okay.
Basically what they do is they pool these patents, they purchase them from other entities, they get them from businesses that are going bankrupt, and they use these to get revenue.
Okay.
They do it by getting license fees.
Give me an example.
Sure. So basically, say you have a business that doesn't work, but you've created some intellectual capital.
Fine.
So you sell that off to liquidate your assets. Well, this company wants to assert those. They buy them, and then they sue a number of small developers. There was recently this case that's going on with Apple and then Lodsys. Whether or not Lodsys is a patent troll is something left up to other people to determine, but they are suing individual app developers that are using a patent that Apple has licensed.
I understand. It's really stealing a patent is really what it comes down to in some respects. I mean, you're trying to take it and make it your own, or just buying it on the I'm not quite sure exactly which way, how you want to classify it, but it's all the above, really.
Honestly, as far as most of these entities are concerned, the actual validity and applicability of the patent is irrelevant. It's just the fact that they can get people to sign the license agreements.
All right. Give me a success story. I want to hear some good news of a nice business that comes to you and you've done some protecting.
Well, the network is new, so we're in process right now. There are a lot of things that people can do, and as it stands, we're still in the process of actually working in active litigation, so I can't really talk about things that are going on right now.
Okay, well, I can understand that, but all right. Now, if they want to reach you, by the way, let's get some information going. How do we find where BLIP is?
Sure. You have a couple different options. You can do either blipclinic.org, which is the direct website of the BLIP clinic. You can also do devsbuild.it, which will take you directly to the Defense Network webpage.
Now, do you have to meet a certain financial criteria to be able to get to you, or can anybody?
If you're an app developer or a small business that's being targeted by a patent troll, you can contact the Alliance, and through them, they'll partner you with various law schools. They might have their own sort of criteria, but we don't turn anyone away.
Now, you, personally, where are you going with this? Do you intend to graduate and go into trademark law? What's your plan here?
So for me, I've worked in the tech sector before I went to law school. I have a policy bent, so I wanted to be able to merge all my little various interests together, and being able to help other entrepreneurs, other developers that are being vexed by these people would serve my own interests in wanting to make some sort of a positive change.
Well, Christopher, I got to tell you, great stuff. I hope anyone watching who has an idea will come out and contact you. And certainly good luck in the future. And hopefully you come back and tell us how you're doing.
I hope so.
All right. Well, that's all for tonight. It's time to deliberate, and I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us, and of course you for watching. Remember, if there's a legal issue or topic you would like to see on the show, email me. And remember, until we see you again, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. We'll see you next time.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.